it depends on your body. It depends on what it is you're navigating through. And so that can really translate into off the mat, right? Of the ways that we're wanting things to be just so, or wanting things to be just right. Oftentimes, the way that we're trying to do that in a physical practice translates to the way that we might be doing that in our romantic relationship, in our relationships with our parents, our kids, our work, our different attentions to our home, certainly.
Welcome to Energy Over Matter, where we explore energy medicine, nervous system regulation, and mind body healing. I'm Dana Wilder.
But it's consistency and showing up, and I think that that's what you did with the yoga too. To start with, is that once you made it a commitment, you showed up again and again. And I think that it telling that the first line in the sutras is Atta Yoga Anasasanam, or now we begin the discipline of yoga. And I love that because it just says everything you need, even in that first line about yoga. Now being the present moment, we're going to do it now, and that we're doing a discipline or a practice, right? That it's not just like one time and you're done. It's that you're going to consistently show up for yourself in these ways. And it comes from the mat and it comes off the mat. And I'm wondering if you could maybe then expand on that, how people would take their practice, like they come to you, they do a retreat, they do a class with you, but how are you hoping, or how can these people take that stillness, that peace they gain, and bring it into all the other chaos of their life?
Certainly. Yeah. So something that was coming through is, do you remember those old Scholastic magazines from when we were kids where you had to circle the things that didn't belong in the photo? You know, it might be like a snow scene and you like circle all the like summer people, or, you know, a beach ball or something. Like these are the things that don't belong. And I think there can be this sort of default mechanism, or what's the baseline? Are we seeking for what's out of place, or are we seeking for what is at peace? And there's definitely this hyper culture of, you know, fix the face, fix the teeth, fix the body. You know, here's this, you know, 30-day challenge to get your beach body, or, you know, all these different things to give this message as if like the face needs Botox and the body needs to be doing this like really intense workout, or, you know, to take this shake and this is going to transform your gut health, or, you know, all of these things that are sort of leaning into the things that we need to fix. And so one of the things that I really love to do in the practice is I very rarely, if at all, will demonstrate a shape. My invitation oftentimes, most of my clients are in New York, and I guide in the Zoom room, and so I invite people to put their device to the side, so I'm this disembodied voice in the space. They can close their eyes, they can cast their eyes to something pleasing out the window, or to a painting they love, and to allow the words to move them in a way that resonates. So it's not fixing the shape to copy how it might look in my body, or what, you know, this is the right alignment for triangle pose, for example, when it depends on your body. It depends on what it is you're navigating through. And so that can really translate into off the mat, right? Of the ways that we're wanting things to be just so, or wanting things to be just right. Oftentimes, the way that we're trying to do that in a physical practice translates to the way that we might be doing that in our romantic relationship, in our relationships with our parents, our kids, our work, our different attentions to our home, certainly. And so one of the things that is really helpful is to connect to a mindfulness in all things, right? So if we're rushing to, one of the common things we see in a vinyasa practice, right, is people moving through this vinyasa. So coming from down dog to plank, lowering down, up dog or cobra to down dog. So this sequence of shapes, oftentimes people rush to get back to that downward facing dog. And the invitation, and I think the great antidote for this modern busy culture is actually, can you slow your breath down and really luxuriate in the in between? So it's like how slowly, like, so almost like think of it like slow motion water moving through. And how would that translate to the way that you do your dishes, to the way that you're dropping your kids off at school, all of these different things. So we're not in these like knee jerk reactions, or maybe not as much, because we're resourced with the breath, with some kind of connection to spirit, with some kind of connection to movement, physically, emotionally, and spiritually connected to nature. And so when all of these things are, like, I think of it, it's like that moment in the Wizard of Oz, where we open up into Technicolor. It's like we kind of like clear the lenses, and we get as awake as we can know to be in the moment, where we let go of the things that we reached for in the past to dull, right? So oftentimes when we think that the emotion is too much, or our trauma that's coming up is too much, we seek for ways to mask it. And I think one of the great yoga practices is we actually stress the body, the mind, and spirit on purpose, right? We want stress, in fact, because that's where growth resides, but it's how we metabolize it, it's how we breathe through it, that actually is the alchemizer of growth. So if we're holding chair pose, for example, maybe like a few breaths longer than you would wish, the mind chatter that's happening in that moment is probably very similar to when you're in kind of like a tense conversation with someone. It's like, can we just not be here? But actually, this is where the practice is. And so that's also easier said than done, but also we're not meant to arrive somewhere. So why are we trying to hijack the present experience to get to the next, when this is the only moment that we have?
So you touched on a couple of things there I found very interesting. So the first being that like it as even as a baby, we have a lot of mirror neurons. And we're told our whole life to kind of like mimic the people around us. That first 7 years of our life, we're in theta wave. We're being like kind of hypnotized by culture, by society, by our parents. And we grow up and we do the same thing. We mentor at work, we mentor with other people. We look at somebody, and like you're saying, we would look at the yoga teacher in front and we would say, okay, that's how the pose is done. I need to do it this way in order to belong, to fit in, to be correct. And it is beneficial to have mentors and to have this capacity to mirror and to match. But we really have lost our ability to feel our intuition, to embody, to feel ourselves, to trust our own instinct, and to trust like our own movement, our own needs. And so I love this idea that you're talking about, where people are just being guided by your voice to find their own way into the
Mm-hmm.
pose and what feels good for them. And I think that that would really move off the mat, because this allows people to be creative with their own movement and to also really enjoy it in a different way. Because if they're worried about doing what you're doing, they're not really in their own body.
That's
And
right.
so they're missing part of the beauty of their fluidity, of their ease, of their sukha.
Thank you for listening to Mind Over MS. For more episodes, guided meditations, and healing resources, follow Energy Over Matter and subscribe wherever you are listening. Until next time, this is Dana Wilder signing off. Have a blessed day and a blessed life. Namaste.